Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the game review, Everton 1, Crystal Palace 1 at Goodison Park on Monday evening. We did the player ratings yesterday and we spoke a little bit about this game in greater depth. But as we said yesterday, we would save the majority of the talking until today. For me, an incredibly disappointing result. Now, I know we got a point out of it, and I know there's definitely an optimistic way to look at this result and sort of think, well, do you know what? We weren't very good in the game, and at least we've come away with something. And, you know, at the very least, we've taken those 2 points away from Crystal Palace that they would have had we had not gotten the late equaliser, and we've managed to, you know, gain a point which ultimately has taken us out of the relegation zone, albeit on goal difference at this moment. But I just can't really look at it that way, and I know that might be because, you know, Everton are in a bit of a perilous position at the moment on the pitch and off the pitch, and therefore pretty much everything surrounding the football club is filled with negativity. I had a comment a few days ago which made me laugh, saying, used to like this channel, but all you do now is talk negatively and think about the negatives of every situation, and I sort of felt like doing a video replying to it, but I didn't. But I was sort of sitting there thinking, well, what do you expect from us? What do you expect? Do you expect me to come and sit on here and lie? Do you expect me to come and sit on here and act? Because I'm not an actor. And, you know, regardless of what people may think of my views or opinions, the reality is they are my views and opinions, and every single thing I say on this channel, I mean. Trust me, I'm not that good of an actor to fake what I'm saying and you know, pretend I'm saying something I don't actually mean. And if it was the case, I think I'd be in some Hollywood films at the moment because, like I said, I think I put across a quite convincing case 99% of the time. And for me, as I said, it's very difficult to look at positives of situations, and it's very difficult to take positives when there isn't really many positives to take. I think this game on Monday night was another example of that. I was really, really disappointed. And you know what? I said going into this game that, you know, if we walk away from Goodison Park with anything other than 3 points, it would be a huge disappointment for me. And I had absolutely no doubt in my mind that, you know, Everton were capable of winning this game of football. And, you know, given obviously Crystal Palace's issues at the moment on the pitch with injuries, they've got a number of their key players out injured, and of course everything that is going on off the pitch as well in their change of management. I thought this was the perfect opportunity for Everton to turn up and put a performance in and pick up our first 3 points in the Premier League since December. But I obviously, you know, wasn't remembering that this is Everton Football Club we're talking about, and therefore I was hugely disappointed. I was hugely disappointed, sorry, and still am, to be honest, 2 or 3 days later, because I looked at Everton's remaining fixtures before kickoff on Monday night. I was stood in Goodison Park, I was having me pie, I was talking to, you know, the group that we go the game with, and I was looking at our remaining home fixtures, and I'd sort of calmed myself down slightly about the whole relegation situation. Not that I was particularly irate about it anyway, because as I've said numerous times this season, you know, the last 3 years have been absolutely excruciating for us, and given we were just about getting out of it and we were starting to play some good football and we were starting to win games and we were starting to, you know, crawl away from that conversation, we get hit with a 10-point deduction and all of a sudden we're back in it. So the emotion for me is being completely drained, because I've got no anger, I've got no upset, I've got no frustration. It just feels like pure emptiness at times this season. However, I was looking at the remaining home fixtures and I thought, no, do you know what? Even if we are to get no points back from the appeal, which as I've said before, and as I'm sure we all know, none of us know what is going to happen. None of us know when it is going to be leaked. Sky Sports, who present themselves as one of the most reputable sources for football and information in the country, said it would be between 24 and 48 hours, and that was about 4 or 5 days ago. So they were quite clearly wrong. There's other reports from other journalists saying that it might not be till the end of the month. It could be any day now, but it might not be till the end of the month. So who knows? who knows when we will get that announcement? Who knows if we will even ever get that announcement? We might just wake up one day and Everton are all of a sudden 4 or 5 places higher in the table and nothing's being said. The Premier League didn't even announce that we'd had a points deduction in the first place, so it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't announce that we'd had it reduced or taken away. So, I've sort of tried putting myself in this mindset of late of, well, forget about the points, forget about the points deduction, and forget about the hope that we get anything back, because there's a very, very big possibility that we don't get any points back from the deduction. And that's not me saying that I know anything that anybody else doesn't know. I haven't got a clue. There's a very big possibility we get some points back. There's a very big possibility we get all points back. The reality of the situation is we are in a relegation battle as it currently stands, and we can't continue the season on the auspices and the hope that we will get points back from the appeal, because we don't know whether or not that is going to be the case. Now, you heard James Garner come out and talk after the game on Monday night about how fans need to be behind the players and how the points reduction has had a negative effect on the group. Now, this is something I said a number of weeks ago when the points reduction was first announced, and Everton went on a little bit of a good run. We won a couple of games on the bounce. I think we won 3 games on the bounce after the points deduction was announced after the game against Manchester United. And you heard all of this nonsense in the dressing room. You heard all of this nonsense in the media and, on the televisions and pundits and various different people within football who was sprouting the same shite of, well, the points deduction's been a good thing for Everton because it's given them an upturn in form and it's given them some motivation and X, Y, and Z. The biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life, by the way. The biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life. How can anybody say, yeah, you see that football team there that have earned all of those points this season by playing well, winning games, being hard to beat, working hard. Yeah, well, we're going to take some of those points away from you through absolutely no fault of your own, and then we're going to say in the media, this is a good thing for you. No, it will never, ever be a good thing. It never, ever was a good thing. And the fact it was trying to be spun in that way because Everton had won a couple of games on the bounce was quite frankly embarrassing by the media in this country, and they should be embarrassed and ashamed of themselves. But the reality is what we're seeing now is what I said 2 or 3 days after all of those articles and reports were coming out, that the points deduction was a good thing and it was a big positive and everything was brilliant now, and we should be thankful for it. I said back then, A, that's a load of nonsense, and B, no, it isn't. The fact of the matter is, we've won a few games on the bounce and we're in good form. We were in good form before the points deduction, by the way, and we've just continued that good form and we've almost put the points deduction to one side. Now, I also recall saying at that time, that will not be something that continues for the rest of the season. We will get to a point where we have a little bit of a hiccup, we lose a couple of games, we maybe don't play quite well, and then it's all about how we react to that. Now, I distinctly remember, and I'm not trying to say I'm right, by the way, everybody else is wrong, I'm just talking about my experience. I distinctly remember saying that my judgment on this squad and how this squad reacts to such things like points deductions will be when we've lost a couple of games after we'd beaten Burnley in December. And I remember saying, once we've lost a couple of games on the bounce, let's see how we then react to that. And if we lose a couple of games and then pick ourselves up and go and win another 3 or 4 on the bounce, then absolutely, I'll hold my hands up and say it's very clear that the points reduction hasn't affected the players. But I knew from day one, when everybody else in the media was saying, oh, this is a great thing for Everton, look at how motivated they are, etc., etc., etc. I knew from day one that wouldn't be the case, because it is impossible to expect human beings to be anything other than disappointed and disheartened and demotivated and upset by the fact that all of their hard work had been taken away from them for something that wasn't their fault. And you can argue all you like about whether or not Everton should have been given a points deduction. There's still a number of opposition fans on social media, TikTok, Twitter. To be honest, I haven't been on Twitter for about 3 weeks, other than to go on and tweet, news and stuff that I need to tweet about Everton to get the word out there. I haven't been on there to interact with anyone or to spend 4 or 5 hours scrolling down for weeks and weeks and weeks. because it just seems like an absolute cesspit at the moment. And as I said at the time, people, bringing this nonsense about how great it is for Everton. And the reality is, those are human beings that have had all of their hard work and, well-earned points taken away from them through no fault of their own. And like I said, regardless of what you think about the Everton situation, whether you think Everton deserve to be punished because they're guilty, whether you think the rules are tangent, there's still a number of opposition fans out there that have this sort of this mentality of, well, Everton were guilty, Everton cheated, so Everton deserve to be punished. Fine, if that's the way you think, firstly, I think you need to sort of look at the actual facts of the situation. But fine, if that's what you think, fine. What you cannot deny is that what is going on at Everton Football Club at the moment, and what has been going on at Everton Football Club for a number of years, with the mismanagement of the finances, the mismanagement of the football club as a whole, recruitment-wise, on the pitch, off the pitch, that has got absolutely nothing to do with this current crop of players or this current management team. They are not responsible for Everton's finances being in the position that they are, and therefore they are not responsible for Everton receiving a punishment for said finances being in the mess that they are. However, what they are responsible for is earning those points and winning those games to put us in that position that we were in prior to the points deduction. So when those points were taken away and everyone was saying, how can you say it's affected Everton negatively? Look at how absolutely brilliant they are. They're winning every week. No, that was never the case. What that was a continuation of the good form, because we were in good form prior to the points deduction. And it was almost like Sean Dyche had said to the players after the points deduction, don't worry about it, let's just continue the way we've been playing. Fine, great, we did that for a couple of games. But then we lost a few games. Then we lost a couple of games on the spin. We lost to Fulham on with a penalty shootout. And then you saw the pressure start to creep in, and then you saw the performances start to drop, you saw the levels start to drop, and then when you mix that with players getting injured, and important players getting injured, and other players needing to come in and fill different positions that they may not necessarily have expected to fill, you get a bad run of form. And it's absolutely no surprise now that you've got players from that squad, namely James Garner, coming out and saying, well, yes, the points deduction has affected us as a squad. No shit. Of course it's affected them as a squad. I told you all that 7-8 weeks ago when everyone was saying everything's hunky-dory and it's brilliant and look at how great Everton are and the points deduction's been a great thing for them. I said, that's a load of bollocks. This will affect the players negatively because it would affect anybody negatively. If I went into my job tomorrow and my boss came around and said, all that great work you've done in the last 2 years, yeah, we're taking that all off you, but we want you to continue to work at a high level, you'd be disheartened, wouldn't you? You wouldn't. You'd feel like you were you feel like you didn't want to do it anymore because all your hard work had gone to shit. That is exactly how those players will be feeling, and that is exactly what we're seeing in the performances. I think personally, we're seeing a extreme level of lack of motivation, and motivation being on the floor, and I think we're seeing an extreme lack of confidence. But in previous years before, we've been able to sit here as fans and say, well, the players have only got themselves to blame. The manager's only got themselves to blame because ultimately he's setting the team up and the players are going out to play and this, that and the other. This season is very, very different. Every time you say anything negative about these players or this manager, people respond with, hang on, these players should be comfortably mid-table, and through no fault of their own, they're not there. And it's very difficult to argue against that because that's right. We shouldn't be sitting here worrying and panicking about relegation. We shouldn't be sitting here thinking, oh, I'll have to watch Luton tonight at 8 o'clock and hope Liverpool beat them, so they don't pick up any points. We shouldn't be. And I agree with that, but that doesn't detract from the fact that the performances of late, specifically Monday night, have not been good enough. And the manager's tactics and the manager's system and the manager's way of playing at Goodison Park this season has been embarrassing. And that's exactly what the title reads. Sean Dyche has had an incredibly difficult job this season, and I don't envy him in the slightest, and I'm not by any sense of the imagination saying sack him, get rid of him, this, that, and the other. What I'm saying is I don't think he helps himself at times. And regardless of where we should be in the table, regardless of how far up the table we deserve to be, because we don't deserve to have the points taken off us, regardless of whether that would take us completely out of a relegation battle or not, the cold, hard facts are that Everton have won 3 games in the Premier League at Goodison Park this season, and we are in the middle of February. That is embarrassing. Another embarrassing fact is that we haven't won a Premier League game since December, and I get the reasons why, as I've just mentioned, but we can't sit there at the end of the season and go, well, injuries, low confidence, players not taking their chances, and the Premier League go, yeah, well, you can stay up on that basis. We need to find a way. We absolutely need to find a way. Before we discuss the game, because again, I feel like every game review I've done in the last month is basically been maybe sitting here talking about a sort of sub conversation from the game rather than the actual game, because the actual game has been utterly terrible. This one was very similar to both FA Cup ties against Crystal Palace last month, in the way of that all 3 games were absolutely horrific watches. Monday night was like watching 2 really, really poor teams trying to beat each other and failing miserably. But one thing I do want to talk about before we move on is James Garner's comments, because James Garner's had an interview that has sort of gone semi-viral, if you like, over the last few days or so on social media because of some of the comments he made. I just want to get the comments up so I'm not mistaking them. So he said, bear in mind, he said, me personally, it plays on my mind. Without the 10-point deduction, we would be much higher in the league table. So whenever that comes in, I will be waiting, talking about the appeal. He says, I can understand the fans' frustrations, but there is so long to go and we need the fans to be supporting us and not booing us. That is important going forward. It's a long season and there will be a lot of teams down there fighting, but you could see in the last 20 minutes, we are still going until the end and creating chances. I understand the frustration because I'm frustrated myself. It is another game that got away from us that we should be looking to win, pardon me. The reason this has frustrated people is because of the comment about booing. He says, I can understand the fans' frustrations, but there is a long way to go. We need fans to be supporting us and not booing us. That is important going forward. This is the old adage, isn't it? It's the old chicken and the egg conversation. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And it's very similar here. What comes first, the performance or the atmosphere? Now, some people would say, well, in order to get the performance, the atmosphere's got to be up. Other people would say, well, in order for the atmosphere to be up, the performance has got to be there. And this is a very difficult problem to solve, in my opinion, because the atmosphere at Goodison Park has been poor of late, and by of late I don't just mean recent weeks or months. It's been poor for years now, for various different reasons, chopping and changing managers every 15 minutes, relegation battles of late have completely killed it off, the anxiety, the nervousness of fans, the panic when we go 1-0 down, because the statistics show you that we very, very rarely come back into games at 1-0 down, and all of those things put together make it that it isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do to rally everybody up and get every single Evertonian within Goodison to be singing and shouting and screaming for 90 plus minutes. Now, I get what James Garner is saying. I get that, the players will get much more benefit out of the fans getting behind them, and I think what he mentions there about the last sort of 20 minutes, Everton were having a go. Firstly, that's incredibly frustrating because if they'd have played like that for the entire 90, we'd have won the game. But secondly, he doesn't quite mention there that the minute the goal went in, which was was that the 80th minute or something, where we equalised. Let me just double check that to to make sure, because I don't want to get that one wrong. 84th minute. So for the 10 minutes that preceded that, before the full-time whistle, the atmosphere in the ground was much more improved. Everybody was energised. Everybody was excited. Every tackle got cheered. Every throw-in got cheered. Every chance got cheered. It was alive. It wasn't great in terms of singing and in terms of chants or whatever, but people's energy levels were risen. People's heart rate was risen. People were up for it. Now, again, it's very, very difficult to tell a set of fans that have been through what we've been through as Evertonians in the last 3 years to get down to Goodison and to sing and scream your heart out for 90 minutes, especially when the performances on the pitch aren't warranting it. I've got no doubt that if Everton were playing lovely, fancy, attacking football and scoring goals free willingly, the atmosphere at Goodison would be absolutely booming. Absolutely booming week in, week out. We're not. And I'm not blaming the manager, saying, well, it's your fault because we should be playing better football. I get it. We haven't got the tools to do that. The players haven't got the quality, and the manager's just trying to get the best out of what he's got. And, ultimately, that means maybe we have to play, let's be honest, boring football, because it is boring. And that, for me, is what is one of the most heartbreaking things about watching Everton at the moment. We can talk all we like about relegation fears and how disappointing and devastating and upsetting and worrying that can be. We can talk about the future of the football club in terms of the ownership and what, how worrying and negative that is looking to be. And everything off the pitch at the moment just seems uber negative surrounding Everton. The new ownership stuff is hugely negative, because it feels like every day we're reading a new story about how 777 are awful and we shouldn't allow them anywhere near the football club. The points deduction stuff is uber negative because we don't know what's going on there. We don't know whether or not we're going to get any back. We don't know whether or not we're going to be higher up in the table. Everything off the field is hugely a mess at the moment. That doesn't even make sense, but it's a massive mess at the moment. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't think I'm alone here when I say, when I was growing up as a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, and what's actually quite interesting is I found on Monday night, just before I left for the game, I found my old football card collection, match attack collection from when I was a kid and when I was collecting them. And I was looking through the Everton page at players like Leighton Baines early on in his Everton career, and Tim Howard, and Jackie Elka was there, and various other different players. And I think Arteta was in there as well. And I remember looking, thinking, when I was collecting these cards, and I was buzzing to see that I'd packed an Everton player, and I got Arteta, or I got Cahill, or I got Dan Gosling, or whoever it might be, I never once was thinking about Everton's financial situation. I never once was thinking about Everton's ownership situation, or who Everton owe money to, or what Everton's financial landscape will look like for 5 years, or where Everton's business model and business plan looks to be in 5 years. I was never asked about any of that. I was asked about going on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday night or whatever it might be and watching those players that I had in my book play decent football and win games. Now, as I said, I appreciate that we haven't got the players to be able to play lovely football. And I'm not blaming Sean Dyche for the way we're playing, because Sean Dyche's method is very clearly, it's more about the result than the performance. But when you're not getting the result and the football is that boring, it just further adds to the anxiety and worry, doesn't it? And as I said, the issues off the pitch are what they are. We can deal with them, and have adult conversations about them, and have adult conversations about our worries and our fears and this, that, and the other. But then when it comes to having to dragging yourself to Goodison Park on a Monday night when it's freezing cold, knowing that the football you're going to be watching is going to be turgid and boring and just dire, it's very difficult to then think, yeah, I'm going to turn up and I'm going to, be screaming and shouting for 90 minutes. It's even more difficult to expect 40,000 people to do that. So I get it. I get what James Garner's saying, but he has to understand that Evertonians have been through an awful lot in recent years, and really and truly, this football club is very, very lucky that we sell out every week. Very lucky that we sell out every week, because I know a number of football clubs and a number of fan bases that if they were in the position Everton were in, there'd be fucking thousands of empty seats every week. Every week there'd be thousands of empty seats. So they're very lucky that we turn up in our numbers and we turn up in our thousands away from home on Thursday nights at the other end of the country. I think the players need a bit more of an understanding. And I'm not saying he's wrong. He's right. Ultimately, he's saying, when you're behind us, we're better. So we need you behind us. I get it. But he also needs to understand why it's not quite as easy as, oh, yeah, we'll get behind them then. Do you know what I mean? My season ticket goes up next year. I've been paying £500 for a few years for my season ticket because I've been in that bracket of 22 to 24. I'm 25 now. My season ticket is £720 next year. £720. Now, there's no question I'll be renewing because A, I'm an Evertonian. That's what we do. And B, it's our final season at Goodison Park and I wouldn't miss it for the world. But my point is we've got all of this going on. All of everything I've just mentioned off the pitch, on the pitch, and then we're paying nearly £1,000, which mightn't seem like a lot to some people, but let me tell you, that is an awful lot of money. An awful lot of money. And you expect to get something back from your money, and we don't get anything back at the moment, and that's why there's so much frustration and worry and panic amongst the Evertonians. But I think both parties have got to give. And I think that's where Sean Dyche specifically, and bringing it back to sort of football in terms, I think that's what Sean Dyche needs to hone in on, because I don't think these players are as bad as what the way they are playing seems to be suggesting. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're great players. I don't think they're unbelievable. I don't think they're amazing. But what I think they are is mid-table Premier League players. There's a couple of top quality youngsters in there that will go on and become, stars, I'm sure, likes of Branthwaite, likes of Onana. But the rest of them are decent quality Premier League mid-table players. And therefore, they are playing below their level at the moment. Now, their league table position should suggest that, because they should be mid-table without the points deduction, but the performances of late have been playing much below that level. Now, I think the manager has got to figure out a way of changing the system and the style, especially at Goodison Park. I've got no worries with playing the way we did on Monday against Manchester City, and that's why when we played that way against Manchester City, they didn't have a shot on target for 70 odd minutes. But when you play like that against Crystal Palace at Goodison, who are very much there for the taking and very much a team in not only transition but in a real free fall of form at the moment, you can't play the same way as you play against the best team in the league, because it isn't going to work unless you are good enough to play and compete against the best team in the league. But we're not. We played defensive. We played, a strong back four. We didn't really have much of the ball. That's fine. I sat there after the Man City game and didn't criticise the manager one bit about the way Everton set up, because I thought it was the right way to set up. But it isn't the right way to set up against Crystal Palace at Goodison, and that's where things need to change. And we talk about atmosphere and getting the fans behind the players. Well, we need to see a little bit then, even if that is just the manager bringing Lewis Dobbin on when it goes to 1-1. That was something I think I said in the instant match reaction. The manager was about. I thought it was Chimiti at the time because I only glanced over once, but the manager was about to bring Lewis Dobbin on. We then equalised, and he told Lewis Dobbin to sit down. Why? 10 minutes to go in the game. We need to go and get a winner. We needed to win that game. Why are you telling an attacker to sit down just because we've equalised? And if I was to sit down with James Garner and have this conversation, that's what I'd be saying. The frustration comes from the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a willingness to win from the manager. It seems like there's a willingness to not lose. And people can disagree with that all they like, and people can say, oh, well, that's not the case, etc., etc., but it is the case. Because we equalised with 10 minutes to go. Now, don't get me wrong, we didn't have lots of the game left to go. But what was absolutely certain is they were on the back foot at that point, Crystal Palace, and we were the team with the momentum, and we were the team that was only going to, if any team was going to win that game at the end, it was only ever going to be Everton. Wasn't it? Let's be honest. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh my God, Everton are amazing. Everton are much better than Palace. We weren't. I thought both teams were absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. But we would have been the team that would have gone and won that game because the momentum with us, the crowd was up, and the players looked like they had a spring in their step. That's the time to bring on a young lad with a point to prove and say, go and win this game, lad. And the Blues says McNeil set the goal up. Who would he come on for? He would come on for McNeil because McNeil was terrible for the rest of the game. And I get he had a few key passes and he stay on for the rest of the game now, even though for the previous 70 minutes you've not really done much, or you've certainly not offered much in terms of pace going forward. I get it. McNeil's not fast. He's not got a lot of pace. That's not his game. I get it. So bring on somebody that has got a bit of pace and will run at people and will have a go for the last 10 minutes. Now that's what I'm saying. I think that's where it has to be a fair, it has to be a fair conversation in terms of, well, if you want the fans to be up and behind you and, screaming and shouting and singing, that isn't a given. I know we all may think that should be a given in football because, you're there to support your club and you're this and you're that and you're the other, but we are human beings. We are human beings with human emotions. We are not robots. We can't just turn up and go, well, we won't worry about everything that's going on. We'll just do exactly what we do every week. That's not how it works. People get worried. People get anxious. People get afraid. People start to think when we go 1-0 down, oh my God, we're going to go down. And then what does that mean? We'll lose X, Y, and Z. And then we might lose the manager. And then we might, go down again. And we are human beings. And the reality is, it's not a case of saying turn up every week and support the team. That's not as easy as that. Trust me, it's not. Anybody that sits next to me in the match will tell you that I am an absolute nightmare to sit next to. A nightmare. I'll get me dad on here one day and I'll ask him what I'm like to sit next to in the match, and he will say I'm a nightmare because all I'm doing is screaming, shouting, chanting, trying to get behind the players, trying to get behind the team, having a go with the opposition fans, having a go with the referee, the opposition players, having a go with the referee, etc. But even I at times this season have found myself with nothing to say and just sitting there sort of thinking, wow, what do we do here? How do we change this? So it isn't just the case of turn up every week and support us. Well, maybe if the manager made a couple of more attacking substitutions, or here's an idea, maybe if he took the 170-year-old who was playing right midfield off at half-time when he should have come off because he was absolutely terrible, and put a Dobbin on, or a Chimiti, or somebody that could have a go at, or even Jack Harrison who come on and done well and was much more direct, then maybe the atmosphere would have been much better in that second half. But when the same 11 players come out for the first half and everybody around you is having the same conversation, what does he see in this performance that we don't see? Because what we've seen is 45 minutes of turgid football that is probably going to continue now. I know for a fact, if Lewis Dobbin or Jack Harrison or Jack Harrison Onana or Dobbin and Onana would have come on at that 45-minute mark, the atmosphere would have been much, much better in that second half than it was. It would have been. Because fans would have looked at that and thought, he's trying to go and win this game here. He's trying to go and win this game. He's trying to go and get us the 3 points, as opposed to the general feeling which I felt in the stadium, and I think a lot of people felt in the stadium. A lot of people might have felt it watching at home as well. Is, does he want to win the game? Is he just settling for the point? Maybe. I don't know whether this is the case. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the manager is more confident with us winning the games that we've got away from home than the ones that we've got at home. And maybe he's thinking, well, if we get, a point at Goodison in all of our games, or we don't lose any of our games at Goodison, and we can pick up some draws, then that's okay, because we'll go away and win those games. And the story of this season tells you that might be the case, because we have been much, much better away from home than we have been at home this season. But that doesn't make any sense for me when you think of the away games that we've got compared to the home games that we've got. We've got to play Brighton away on Saturday, who, of course, we've beaten, a couple of times in the last couple of years away from home, but both of those results were shocking surprises at the time. Brighton are a good side, as we know. We've got to play United away, who we haven't beaten for 11 years. At Old Trafford, we've got to play Bournemouth away, who we've got an absolutely terrible record against in recent years. We've got to play Newcastle away, which won't be easy. We've got to play Chelsea away again. When was the last time we won at Chelsea? I know we've picked up a couple of draws there lately, which was positive, but last time we won at Chelsea, 2011, 2010? Somebody will tell me. Got to play Luton away, who will be bang up for it, because it's it's one of the final games of the season, and they could be in a position where if they win it, they stay up. And then we've got to play Arsenal away again. Last time we beat them was in COVID, I believe, but the time before that, with fans in the stadium, was however long ago. So you compare that to our home games, which are West Ham. One, I expect Everton to win. Liverpool, okay, put that to the side. Burnley, I expect Everton to win. Forest, I expect Everton to win. Brentford, I expect Everton to win. And then Sheffield United, I expect Everton to win. So the reality is I don't understand the premise of not wanting to go and win all your home games. And I'm not saying that the manager doesn't want to go and win all his home games, but what I'm saying is that performance on Monday night, and specifically his lack of substitutions, and specifically his, as I said, that one moment just really, really wound me up. And I know there'll be 100 Sean Dyche supporters in the comments who back him to the hilt and don't think he can do any wrong. Who'll say, oh, well, it was for this reason, it was for that reason, it was for the reason. I just don't see how you can have a player, a young, hungry, quick, attacking player. I'm not saying he's excellent, not saying he's the best player ever, not saying he would be guaranteed to win us the game, but somebody that offers us something a little bit different, a bit more directness, and would almost give Crystal Palace a problem, because they don't know much about him, and they've been playing for 85 minutes, so they'll be naturally a little bit fatigued. I don't understand how you can have him ready to come on with a plan, assumingly that he is going to come on and do everything I've just said, and then sit him down when we equalise, almost as if to say, well, I was only bringing you on to get an equaliser, but now you can sit down again. Almost as if to say, that'll do, we've got our equaliser, that'll do for us. That, for me, just doesn't make any sense when it's a game you've got to win. And it was. Monday was a must-win game, regardless of what people think, regardless of what people say. Monday was an absolute must-win game, and we've not won it. And again, I get it. Manager's got very little to work with. Everything off the pitch is on its arse, and the players on the pitch aren't exactly world beaters. But I just think his system and his setup and his approach could be a little bit more positive. And like I said, there's reasons for it. I understand that. But then James Garner needs to understand that there's reasons that the fans aren't singing and screaming and shouting their heart out for 90 minutes. And I think if the fans saw a bit more positivity from the team, and a bit more positivity from the manager in his selection and his decision making, then I think we would be a little bit more positive. For example, let's just say Everton turn up at Brighton on Saturday. Now, again, very different situation. We're away from home. We may play exactly the same way as we did against Palace at Brighton on Saturday and win because we're away from home. We won't have much of the ball. We'll be focused on defending and counter-attacking. That is very possible. But our next home game, West Ham at home, I don't want to see Ashley Young playing right with midfield. I don't care if Jack Addison hasn't had a great season or isn't a particularly consistent footballer in terms of his ability. I don't care if Lewis Dobbin is inexperienced and we don't know much about him. I don't care if Yusuf Chamiti is inexperienced. You've got to give the fans something to be optimistic about. Otherwise, don't expect a massive atmosphere in the stadium because you're not going to get it. And I'm not fully blaming Sean Dyche. Again, he's got his hands tied behind his back, etc., etc. But as I said on Saturday, and this isn't just a case of anti-Ashley Young, I've got no personal issue with Ashley Young. He's a 38-year-old who, fair play to him, he wants to still play at the highest level, even though he knows and we know he's coming towards the end of his career. He wants to still play, and I'm sure he's great in the dressing room. I'm sure he's got loads of things to teach the young players and loads of experience. He's won titles, wherever he's been. Fair play. The facts are the facts, and the cold, hard facts is that Ashley Young brings nothing to this Everton team. Nothing. You look at some of the players that we've had over the years that have come in at sort of that delicate age towards the end of their career. You Gareth Barry. Gareth Barry's the one that, for me, sticks out massively. He come in his 30s, just been at Manchester City, and I remember thinking, see if we can get half a season out of him. He might be one of those players that comes in every now and then and goes out. He was excellent for Everton. Because even though he mightn't have had the legs, even though he mightn't have had the pace or the ability to get about the pitch, he used his footballing brain so that he didn't need to do that. And that is why players like Pirlo were able to play into their 30s, late 30s. Players like Iniesta, Xavi, Toni Kroos now is how old? And still playing at the highest level. Let me just Google. Toni Kroos, 34 years old. Let's see, Luka Modric. And I guess these are Luka Modric, 38 years old, so the same age as Ashley Young. And I get these are examples of world-class players, and Ashley Young isn't quite in that bracket. However, they adapted the way they played to suit their body and to suit what they could and couldn't do, like Gareth Barry did all those years back at Everton. I just don't think Ashley Young has done that. And yes, Ashley Young at times can put in a decent performance. He can have an alright game. He can have a go. He can work hard. He can do the basics. But more often than not, he doesn't use his footballing brain, or he certainly doesn't seem to do. He plays like he thinks he's still 21, 22. And he gets caught far too often. Far too often. But yeah, as I said, for me, I do think the manager has to take responsibility because at the end of the day, Everton have now got 5 incredibly winnable games coming up. Incredibly winnable games. Now, if Everton can get to, what are we on now? 20 points now, I think, after that point on Monday night. If Everton win all 5 of them, then we go to 35 points, which would currently put us joint 10th with Chelsea. Let's say we don't get any points back. I think 35 points and then maybe a couple of draws away from home would be good enough to keep us in the Premier League. Now, the likelihood of us winning all 5 of those games at Goodison, unlikely, especially given I had us nailed on to win on Monday night and we didn't. But the manager needs to come up with a way of playing at Goodison. The manager needs to come up with a system and a style to get the most out of those players at home. And I don't just mean to get the most out of one player or 2 players. Because I can tell you now, for as bad as people may think Dominic Calvert-Lewin is, and for as for as poor as he's been of late, and I agree, he's not being great, he's been poor, I understand it, and I agree with it, he's missed some big chances. None of you, absolutely none of you can sit there and tell me that this system is playing to Dominic Calvert-Lewin's strengths. None of you. None of you. Same way as it's not playing to Dwight McNeil's strengths or Jack Harrison's strengths. And the manager needs to come up with a way of getting more out of those attackers. I agree, they're not great. I agree, I'm not saying they're world class, but they are definitely underperforming. They are definitely better than what they're showing of late. Definitely. We know that because Calvert-Lewin's had seasons where he scored 15, 16 goals in the Premier League. Dwight McNeil was excellent last season. Got us out of some big some big wins in big games. The manager isn't getting the most out of these players, and therefore he needs to figure out a way to do that, because we have got 5 games coming up at Goodison Park and we can't afford to lose any of them. Really, we need to win all of them, but we can't afford to lose any of them. The Blues says playing target man football it's not target man football, mate. It's lumping it up to him and then everybody else stands 4 miles away from him. And no matter what he does, knock on, head on, etc., etc., nobody gets anywhere near him. I don't mind the long ball, knock up to him, but get somebody playing off him. Don't have everyone standing around fucking miles away from him. It's not playing to his strengths at all. It's putting him in a position where everybody goes, well, lump it up to Dom and hope he can do something. And that doesn't work. And again, I'm not saying Dom's an unbelievable, world-class, talented footballer, but what Dom needs, and I'll tell you now, what Dom needs is a goal. A goal. Yeah, but you can say, oh, okay, let me give you this example. Who do you think is the best target man in the world? The Blues. Genuine question. Who do you think is the best target man in the world? I'll wait for the answer. But yeah, as I said, for me, the manager needs to find a way of getting more out of those attacking players. He does. He needs to find a way, because at the moment it's just not working. It simply isn't working. What he needs is a goal. And for me, the moment he gets that one goal, I think we will start to see more goals from him, because he's very clearly got a huge burden. And I've heard ex-pros talk in recent days about how when you're a centre forward and you've not scored for a while, every chance you get that you miss feels like the end of the world. But when you finally get that goal, all of that sort of pressure and worry and anxiety is removed. Best target man. I'm not saying, by the way, Dom's great one-on-one. Dom's great, converting chances. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is you could stick Erling Haaland, Harry Kane. You could stick any striker in the world you imagine. If you put them up front and you say, right, what we're going to do is we're going to lump the ball up from the centre half up to you, and then we're going to have no one standing around you, and you're going to have 2 centre halves on you at all times, they wouldn't get much success. They wouldn't. And that's just a fact. But anyway, as I said, we need to be better. We need to be better. I thought we changed when he made substitutions. Shock. We got better when he made substitutions, almost like we were all saying for him to do that at half-time. I thought Onana come on and change the game positively, although I don't think... No, he would obviously score for us. Haaland would obviously score. Blues says, don't tell me you think Haaland would score for us. Yeah, you're right, because he'd score the one-on-ones that Dom misses, and he might score a couple of them chances. But you do realise Erling Haaland misses about 3 or 4 huge opportunities every game, by the way. He just gets 20 chances and usually puts 1 or 2 of them in the back of the net. But he does miss, quite frequently, big opportunities. But for Dom gets 1 chance a game. And if he misses it, it's highlighted everywhere. Haaland gets 15, and I'm not comparing them. Obviously, Erling Haaland is a much better and much more superior striker than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I'm just using that as an example. I thought we changed... Anyway, off that conversation, onto another one. I thought we changed when Onana come on. I thought Onana was much better. I don't really think Garner Gay should have come off. I didn't quite understand that. I thought Garner Gay was the best player on the pitch at the time, so I'm not really sure why he was brought off. Maybe it was for fitness reasons. I'm not quite sure. And I thought we looked better with Jack Harrison as well. I thought Jack Harrison give us a bit more directness. And as you all know, I've been a critic of Jack Harrison this season, but I'd rather have somebody that is capable of running at defenders and tries to run at defenders than somebody that doesn't, regardless of how good they actually are and how good their end product actually is. And I've realised that over the last, watching that game of football on Monday night, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like I said, we need to be better, and we've got a number of huge games coming up, and we can't afford to perform like that at Goodison Park again this season. That is the last time I want to see that type of performance at home, because, like I said, we can't afford to do that again. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. We'll be back with the game preview to that game against Brighton on Friday. But who knows, we may be back before then, depending on not if we get any form of announcement or leak about the potential appeal decision and when that will come out. So there you go. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button. Huge thank you all for watching. Massive thank you for the support. Big thanks to everybody for watching the live comments. Nice one, everyone, the Blues, and everyone else for getting involved in the conversation. I appreciate it as always. But until then, big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon.